the, from beautiful British Columbia here, and particularly it's nice to see Honorable O'Toole is with us on this committee. Welcome, Mr. O'Toole, to you. And of course, I'm going to call this meeting to order now, and welcome to meeting number 9 of the House of Commons Special Committee on Afghanistan, created pursuant to the order of the House of December 8th, 2021. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to House of Order November 25th, 2021. I would like to remind all those present in the room to please follow the recommendations from the public health authorities as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19, 2021 to remain healthy and safe. Should any technical challenges arise, please advise me, as we may need to suspend for a few minutes to ensure all members are able to participate fully. My request to the witnesses should also be aware that translation is available through the globe icon at the bottom of the screen to select the language of their choice because of the bilingualism. French and English are available simultaneously. And now, on behalf of the committee members, I would like to welcome our witnesses today. For the first panel, we have former interpreters for the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Ghulam Piazi, Mr. Hamid Khan, and Mr. Ahmed Sohaib. I hope I pronounced it that right. And to the witnesses, you will have exactly 5 minutes to speak, and please be respectful of the time so members can get as much time to ask you questions. And now we will proceed with Mr. Fiazi for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all the honorable members and guests for giving me this chance to appear in front of the Special Committee on Afghanistan. The federal government, and particularly IRCC, should stop playing politics with us because it is a matter of life and death for our parents and siblings. We represent a large group of former interpreters who helped keep Canadian soldiers safe for so many years in Afghanistan. Let me give you a sense of how hard it is to live in Afghanistan for an interpreter's family who supported the Canadian mission there. In this month of Ramadan, our families are fasting and hiding from the Taliban government and its supporters. This is what our families gone through in Afghanistan. For example, the Taliban raided one of our farmers' interpreter's house. His brother burned all the documents, and he was only able to send one of his brothers to Pakistan. He tells me he cannot afford for all of his family members to travel to Pakistan at the same time and arrange for their living there. His family is still living in Afghanistan, and they do not know what will happen to them tomorrow. They constantly change their location. We have had dozens of meetings with IRCC. We have wanted positive results from one week to the next. Why not assign 10 or more case numbers a week to our families' cases? Why not shift 15 cases a week for final decision to Abu Dhabi office? We seem to be getting the opposite. We ask the same questions every week, and the answers we get back are either negative or they tell us we are still chasing these questions. I will give you an example of those questions. We want IRCC to include 4 or 5 or family members who left Afghanistan before July 22nd, 2021. In this current public policy that is made for extended families, the status of those 4 to 5 families members in third countries is temporary, and they could be deported back to Afghanistan. But IRCC is not willing to do that. Moreover, IRCC must stop double standard policies. Why I call double standards? It is because IRCC provides a 1-year RAP resettlement assistance program to some applicants, but they recently changed it for families. The website says our extended families will not be covered under the RAP program for 1 year when they come to Canada. So my question is, how can I or another former Canadian interpreter support his parents, siblings to rent them a place for the first year or support them while none of them will have a basic job when they arrive to Canada? So the Minister of Immigration made promises directly to us, and we want him to keep these promises. We want him to process the rest of the applications and assign case numbers to those applications those are being waiting in his office for more than 3 months. He personally told us we control paperwork, and I will make sure, and my team will make sure you guys will have the case numbers for your application within 2 weeks. But that is more than 65% of our applications are still ignored or not being assigned any case numbers. Second, he also promised us the first batch of our extended families will arrive in the first quarter of 2022. We want him to keep this promise. We have 0 family members arrive under this current policy. We want him to include these 4 to 5 families. These are also our families in the third countries, and they are temporarily living there, and they will be deported. We want him to do more and talk to Pakistani delegation to provide our families with a single travel document or border passes so our families can travel to Pakistan without passport, which we have a problems with that. We want him to talk with the Qatari government about securing charter flights from Kabul airport to Doha or UAE, because Qataris control airports in Afghanistan currently. We want IRCC to provide the same sort of services to our families as they arrange for the same program. We want him to keep his promises and do his moral obligation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fiazi. Now we can go to Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan, you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the respective members of the Special Committee on Afghanistan for giving us the opportunity to come here and discuss the problems that we have with the RCC and the Government of Canada. I want to start with where we had the fall of Kabul. The fall of Kabul was a devastating tragedy for all of us. That moment, watching it on TV, was the last hope that we were all losing. We lost. We failed to build a society where freedom and women's rights are respected, where everyone has an opportunity to be what they want, where the dreams of young generation can be seen, where minorities have a voice. This pain will always be hunting us down because we believed in it, we fought for it. With the Canadian forces, shoulder to shoulder, we were their eyes and ears on the ground. Many of our brethren and sisters died in these years, some on the front lines with the Canadian soldiers. And some died in assassination by Taliban after their service. The fall of Kabul was a devastating tragedy for all of us, a tragedy that puts all our families at risk, a risk that none of our families took part in, but they're there because of our enduring relationship with the Canadian Armed Forces and its civilian mission in Afghanistan. Look at us now. We're here talking about life and death situation We're asking the Canadian public, we're asking lawmakers, we're asking parliamentarians, we're asking the government officials to listen to us, listen to our concerns, listen to our cries. We're desperate, need of saving our families. They're all hiding one way or another, moving from one house to another house. People have been chased down. Our homes and stuffs are being searched. It's a dire situation. Most of the families are starving, and we're all living in fear that this is the last day we will see. We're here because of our enduring relationship with Canada. None of our family deserve this. The Taliban have done multiple killings of anyone considered a traitor, and now this knot is getting tighter as they enter and search houses of suspected family members of those that work with NATO or ISAF forces. Many have burned the paperwork that connects our families to Canada. First-hand reports paint a sad situation. Valuables are being taken, leaving them no choice but to starve. Taliban are not only physically assaulting men, but women of the family members of the former interpreters. These are true stories. I personally know two interpreters, former interpreters in British Columbia. They're very close to me. The Taliban went to their house, took their valuables, the cars, motorcycles, showed no mercy to the men and women, physically assaulted them, which is unheard of in the Afghan society. The Taliban justify the retribution of wealth and valuables from former interpreters and the people that work with NATO and ISAF forces because they say that this money or property was earned through illegal means, and since they are fighting the jihad, that wealth can be taken by force. We receive phone calls from former interpreters. You know, they cry their hearts out to us as their members and their representatives. They ask us to save their families. The answer, of course, is no. We can't save anyone. We don't have any power in our hands. We asked our prime minister, we asked the minister at IRCC and the honorable parliamentarians to help us in this matter. We're doing what we can. You know, multiple protests. We organized 2 hunger strikes. We provided IRCC with consolidated list with our families' names, information. We submitted the necessary paperwork within the government opened the web portal for our families on December 9, 2021. We have had 29 meetings so far with IRCC officials. I'll talk about what we have received so far. It's going to take a little bit, one more minute, but I promise I just want to finish this right away. So what did we receive? A promise of urgent processing. A promise to bring families to Canada starting in the first quarter of 2022. A promise to get UCI numbers and promise to work with third countries to bring our families safely to Canada. Promises are what we have got. No families have arrived. Zero members of our family have arrived. 65%.
Mr. Khan, your time is up. Sorry to interrupt you. If you can wrap up in 15 seconds, and then I'm going to go to the next member, please.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So we have 4 demands that I've listed here. Issue all remaining UCI numbers within 1 month. Understandably, there may be exceptions. Provide clear timeframes for this process. Provide a clear passage, and provide assistance for people traveling to Pakistan or whoever they're already in Pakistan, including IOM accommodations and financial support. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. And now we're going to go to Mr. Ahmed Suaib. Mr. Suaib, you have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us today here. Thanks for giving us the time and listening to us, to our sorrows, to our griefs, to our struggles. Thank you so much for Special Afghanistan Committee in regards to interpreters' extended families and the misleading promises of IRCC. What brought us to this Special Afghanistan Committee is the matter of life and death of our beloved ones, the matter of life and death of our siblings, the ones who supported us to go be in the front line, support the Canadian mission. to work hard, stay there, stay strong. Today, they are in Afghanistan, and we are helpless. We, the former interpreters, were in contract with the Canadian forces, and we were in contract with the Canadian government while we were there in front line supporting the Canadian mission in Afghanistan. Afghan interpreters who were once heroes to the government of Canada, today they are zero because they are stressed, depressed, panicking, and mentally unstable due to the life threat to their families, to their beloved ones. We have been going through tough times of our lives. We will bring up families suffering as an example, and I will bring that my family as an example, that how is my family going, and it's an example of 300 families. My family, who has been exiled and expelled from our province, all we had has been confiscated by Taliban. Our house has been destroyed by Taliban. The main problem we have is that we cannot go back to our province. Since Taliban came into power, my family is running around, and they are in the run just to make sure they stay safe and they stay alive. This is one of our main concerns. And we have been talking regarding one specific thing with IRCC from day one, and it's been over 7 months from the day we started this mission or this battle for our families, that this is a matter of life and death. It's not a matter of paperwork. We want them to be evacuated to a third country to make sure they're safe, to make sure that they do not become the victim of our enduring relationship with the Canadian government. It's been months that we are in direct contact with IRCC, bringing up our problems and our families' struggle to survive. We have been telling IRCC the ground realities and what our families are going through. Their answer is that they're taking notes, and their answer is, we are getting back to you. We still have tens of unanswered questions. We still have 65% of our former extended members of interpreters, families, still waiting. 65%, that's a big number, still waiting to receive their UCI NG numbers. But the government, the IRCC is pushing us. IRCC is pushing us to get passports, which means to disclose our portfolio, to let Taliban recognize us, who we are, to go there, get passports and other required documents, which is not a safe way to do, and which is not something safe for our families to go on and take actions. We have a lot of problems. The main problem is the summer that is here. We kindly asked IRCC months ago that the summer is arriving. We have experienced the struggles of all the people who have been supporting the government, NATO and ISAF forces in Afghanistan. Now that the summer is here, our families are struggling. We told them months ago this. Who is going to be responsible for that? If being human matters. Why are we pushing these, our families?
Hello, can you hear me, Mr. Swab?
Yes.
You have already gone to 6 minutes. I'm sorry, I have to let you stop. And once the members ask you questions, you can cover that. I hate to cut off. That's why I said let me respect the 5 minute time. So I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, though. And now we can start with the round of questions. Before I start, I want to remind all honorable members that if you are not on camera, then you are not counted in your chair if you were present in the room. So to maintain the quorum, we still have the quorum, but I would request every member to pay that attention. Thank you. And now we will start with the first. I'm going to honorable member Jasraj Singh Helen for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here. First and foremost, thank you for your service to Canada and your advocacy on behalf of not just your family, but on behalf of other families who are stuck in this loophole and this bureaucratic mess that they are caught up in today. I also want to say how much of a pleasure it was to meet all of you on Parliament Hill when you were all on hunger strike. On strike because of the absolute failure by this Liberal government to address your concerns. Mr. Faizi, when we were speaking on the Hill, you had spoken about and you showed me that the immigration minister had made some insensitive comments towards your family members and those of others, in the sense that he said they were security threats or implied to be, according to what we talked about on the Hill. I did ask the minister to apologize for that twice. He refused to do that. Has the minister reached out to you in any way? And I did also mention that he met with your families 28 times and still they haven't heard any response. Has he reached out at all to apologize for these insensitive comments?
Thank you, Mr. Helen. No, he did not reach out to us, and we're still waiting to meet him because we requested a meeting and they told us he will try to find a place and meet you. So we're still waiting on this one.
Okay, well, I hope he hears your concerns and apologizes for those insensitive comments that he made. Now, even in my office, we hear lots of concerns about not getting reference numbers after applying to this special program. Are there any families that you guys are aware of, Mr. Faizi or Shoaib, that have they gotten their UCI numbers now or any type of reference numbers?
We haven't received any UCI or G numbers after the application arrived to IRCC office after January 10th. So they stopped completely and we got 0 UCI and G numbers after that. Before we got about 35 to 34% ahead of time.
You guys, and I'm sure that they're also, because you don't have any reference numbers, a lot of them have not even received any biometrics. Have you heard of any of them getting biometrics letters or anything like that?
Actually, our main problem is getting UCI and G numbers. If we do not get UCI and G number, that means we are not in the system. So we cannot go further than that. That's our first step. Our first demand is UCI and G numbers.
And how long has it been? Let's see, how long is it taking in your guys' eyes for getting these UCI numbers, or when did they apply?
It's been, for myself, I'm an example of the rest of interpreters. I've been waiting for 129 days to receive my UCI or G number. Wow. For the fact that my family is going through the tough time of their life.
We heard through the testimony that you guys have met with the minister's office 29 times since October of 2021, and I've been meeting with interpreters here in Calgary before the selfish election was called. Have any of you seen any action on some of the promises that were made at some of these meetings or some of your requests?
The promises that were made in regards to our family's evacuation, those were misleading promises. None of those promises were
and what were some of them?
Sorry,
And what were some of those promises?
go ahead.
Yeah. So, for example, at the beginning, we explained to the RCC some of our families have Afghan passport, but some of they don't have. Some of they have like a birth certificate, but some they don't have because we did not hope that the government of Afghanistan will fail. So they said, you guys do not need passports. So last meeting, after the hunger strike, we had a parliament held. So they told us if you guys can, you guys should get passport. Without passport, you guys traveling to Pakistan or any other country, it will be difficult for us to get you out of there. And we told them, you promised, IRC promised us and promised the public if a case number or an applicant made it to a third country should contact IRCC and we will help them to take them out of that country. So going to Taliban and asking for a family passport, the first question they ask you, why do you need passport for every single member in your family? Who did you work for and who did you have relationship with any foreign NATO members? So they start targeting and investigating you. So this is one of the examples.
Well, and Mr. Shoaib, you had mentioned that there's been a lot of unanswered questions. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what those unanswered questions were?
First of all, this is an unanswered question that we keep asking for UCI, and they're saying, we are getting back to you. Last meeting, they told us before the end of May, you guys will receive your answers or UCIs, or the applications will be returned back. So whatever the case will be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Helen. Your 6 minutes is up, and I just want to remind the honorable members and the witnesses. I would appreciate if you can talk through the chair, but I'm a bit lenient this way. I don't mind as long as the person that is asked question is the only one that answers. So appreciate that. And now I'm going to honorable member Pam Damoff, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair. And to our witnesses here today, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service to Canada. We could not have done what we did in Afghanistan without your service. And so I want to recognize that. And I was born and raised in Canada. All my family is here with me. I cannot imagine the heartbreak and uncertainty that you're going through right now. So I'm not even going to pretend to understand that, because I can't begin to know the heartbreak that you're feeling. Mr. Fawzi, you mentioned that not all of your family could afford to get to Pakistan, and I had a question about that, because we've had previous witnesses talk about the challenges of actually leaving Afghanistan and getting into Pakistan. So I wonder if you could clarify, is it strictly a financial issue, or are there issues with the Pakistani government and requirements to actually get into Pakistan? I'm trying to clarify, like, what can we do to support those people to get to Pakistan?
Thank you. There are three sides of these questions I can explain. First of all, yes, it is financial problems and as well documents required by Pakistan. So for example, if you go to Pakistan, you need to get Pakistani visa in Afghanistan. So if you want to apply, first of all, you have to have Afghani passport, which is required if you want to apply for Pakistani visa. So if you want to apply for Pakistani visa, it's not a usual or normal procedure anymore. So you have to hire somebody, a third person, to buy you a Pakistani visa. One Pakistani visa costs you from $300 to $900 per person, which is a lot of money. And the third problem, when we crossed Pakistan, we're been asking IRCC, like about 10 to 12 families already being there in Islamabad. We provided the total list to the members of IRC who we speak per weekly. Those members already be in Pakistan, and their Pakistani visa is about to expire, and they have to return to Afghanistan. So their answer is no, you don't have to return to Afghanistan, but we will try to get you accommodation with IOM. So it's been almost 2 to 3 months. They did not provide our families a single accommodation. So there are multiple problems going to Pakistan.
So I think when you were talking, or it wasn't you, perhaps it was Mr. Khan, about the passport issue. The passports actually needed to get into Pakistan, not Canadian. The Canadian government doesn't require a passport to come to Canada. So if you were able to come directly here, you wouldn't need it. It's to get into the third country, right?
So that is where we asked the Canadian IRCC to provide or talk to Pakistani delegation. They provided in the past border passes. And in that case, we will not need a passport. We can
Right.
travel to Pakistan with the border passes.
But that's out of our hands, though, right? So if we can try talking to Pakistan, but if they choose not to offer that documentation, we're relying on other governments here to get your families to Canada, which I think is what we all want to do. So I'm trying to narrow in on what Canada can do directly that doesn't involve getting other countries. Do you know if any of your family has been able to get to any other countries other than
No.
Canada?
No, my family only couple were able to travel to Pakistan, and there is still stuck in Afghanistan, constantly
Okay.
changing their location. And yes, you mentioned this is out of your hand. What IRCC also keep pointing in this point. How about the UCNG numbers that is in the hand of IRCC?
Yeah,
If they
100%.
only assign one case number per day, at least we will have 5 case numbers at the end of the week.
Yeah. Mr. Khan, you said 0 family members have arrived in Canada. Is that your family, or is that for all the Afghan interpreters? I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. No, the 0 is out of the 5,000 spaces that are reserved for the former interpreters' families. So the 0 is amount of the families that have made it to Canada so far, as well as people that received visas or anything like that.
Okay, and these are extended family members, correct? So we've broadened the program, I believe, so that it's extended family. It's not just immediate family.
In some cases, there's also the spousal, as well as the kids are included. But IRCC strictly ask us to keep it to the siblings and the parents only.
Okay, but that's not always the case if you're trying to bring in family into Canada. So, okay, well, we certainly have some work to do, but I think my time is almost up, Chair. I've got 15 seconds left. I guess I'll just end to say that we hear you. We'll be doing a report at this committee, and again, I just thank you profusely for your service to the country.
Thank you very much, Madam Demop. Now we will proceed to my friend from the bloc, Honorable Member Alexis Brunel de Sepp. Please go ahead for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to be sure that everybody can hear the interpretation from French to English. And if so, please give me a thumbs up. Can you hear? Perfect.
English part?
No, I don't hear the English part.
I just want to be sure it's working.
Do you hear? No? Can you select, there is a language on the right hand side bottom. If you see there is an icon, you can either have English, French, or off, right? So you might be whatever you're thinking.
I did select English and I don't hear any.
Well, if I'm speaking French now, can you hear the English interpreter in your headset? Can you hear the English interpreter speaking to you? It's very important for me Chair. I'd like to be sure that they can hear me.
Mr. Brunel de Sepp, I said it in the beginning as well, and I still, it's not your time, and I'll make sure that they are able to listen to the English interpretation, and only then we'll go ahead. Mr. Piazzi, do you hear when he speaks in French, do you hear the English translation?
I just selected the English translator, but can he speak again, please?
Sure.
Sorry for that.
Sorry, Bruno.
Well then, yes, I'm happy to speak again. Mr. Fazzi, I'll be speaking to you. Do you hear the English interpretation? Now you do as well, sir?
Mr. Bruno, let me start your time.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for your service. And as my colleagues have said to you, we cannot imagine how we feel, how we stand in solidarity with you. We're happy to have you here for this very important meeting. I have some questions for you. You can answer the series of questions in the order you like. We know that certain groups have been exempted because they could pose a risk. The Minister of Transport was putting an air bridge out for the Ukrainians because of the war. Certainly, I stand in solidarity with the Ukrainians as well, but I do want to know this. How do you see the response by the IRCC to the Ukrainian crisis versus the Afghanistan crisis that you are living in? What is your answer? From all of you, please.
Yeah, so this is one of the great questions that we have answered. We have told the RCC as well the same thing, that as Afghans, as victim of the Soviet invasion, we feel for the Ukrainian people, and but at the same time, what our expectation from the Canadian government is that we are not some people that are coming from outside of Canada. We're Canadian citizen, we're tax-paying Canadian citizen, we're voting Canadian citizen, we're contributing to all parts of contributions to the society. We're allies. We work on a front line with the Canadian soldiers. We lost people. We have people that lost their limbs. We have people that suffers from trauma, lifelong trauma. So when you think of our families and compare with how Canada responded to other countries and other immigration evacuation plans, it's shambles the way we have been treated. Very disappointed. Very disappointed. The whole former Canadian interpreters and the families, very disappointed, and the way we have been dealt with, especially by the IRCC, especially with the fake promises, especially with the lack of substance, as well as not, walking the talk with all the promises.
But do you think that some measures that were put in place for Ukrainian refugees should have been put in place for the Afghans who are stuck still in their country? This is the point of my question for you.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. No, thank you. Indeed, it should have been. And that's also what we requested from IRCC in the beginning as well, that, these are some of the facilitation, some of the, including bringing people into Pakistan or another third country, as well as bringing people, into Canada, right away, as they have done with the Ukraine. Now, one thing that IRCC claims that I want to refute right here, that because of the national security, because of, as Mr. Holland, respected Holland, mentioned earlier, that how the minister made the comments were, despicable, because we were somebody of the highest security background. We were somebody that shared compounds and compartments and rooms and dining table with the Canadian soldier. Same with the Canadian civilian mission, senators, member of parliaments that visited Kandahar, Afghanistan. Now calling all our data is with the Department of National Defense for the last 10 years. All our families that are in Canada came through the 2009, 2012 process. So there's no way to say that they don't have information on our families or they don't trust our families. Imagine losing, giving your life for the purpose, fighting in the battle for the purpose of the same values that Canada believes in. We fought for the same values. And now, to be called out that your families are at risk and we can't do the same thing. For our families, they made 14 or 15 different forms of requirements. For the Ukrainians, they avoided most of the paperwork, which is way easier traveling into Canada. And the last 7 months, only 10,000 Afghans have made it to Canada, not from Afghanistan. Majority came from other spots as well. But from the Ukrainians so far, you know the number more than me. How in the last only 6 to 8 weeks, how many Ukrainians have been brought to Canada? Now, our demand from the RSCC, from the Canadian government, is to treat us fairly. We're also human. We also bleed. We fought with you. We were your allies.
I know Mr. Fuzzy wants to intervene because I saw him raise his hand. But what you're saying, perhaps it would be interesting to put in place, quite frankly, a mechanism to look at this because there is such a conflict in approaches. Perhaps there should be different steps that should be respected for all different groups. Is that what you are saying to me? I think that's what you're saying to me. And I think it's important for our committee to note that as we prepare our report. Mr. Fuzzy, I think Mr. Chair, Mr. Fuzzy wants to intervene.
Mr. Bruno Desep, your time is up, but I'll give 15 seconds to Mr. Piazzi if can say something.
Since the time is limited, IRCC can accommodate our families in a third country and then provide them charter flights from a third country, which is very clear, and we share the pathway with them, but they just need to take an action on this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno Desep. Now we will move on to the honorable member from NDP, Madam Jenny Kwan, for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the former interpreters from Afghan for presenting today. I actually consider you as part of the Canadian military. There's no question that we need to thank you for your service. And now it is the Canadian government's responsibility to make sure that your loved ones are brought here to Canada safely. So I just want to follow up on this question with respect to documentations. If the Canadian government issue your family members a single travel journey document, and so if they had that document, would they be able to utilize that document and go to Pakistan and then to get on a flight to come to Canada safely? I'd like to ask that question for each of you. If you can give me a brief answer, because I have a follow-up question following that. I'll start with Mr. Fazzi.
Yes, it will be easy for families, and they will not go to Taliban to ask for passport or Pakistan visas to third persons, and they can travel to Pakistan, and after the process, they can travel to Canada with a single travel document.
Thank you. And is that the same answer from Mr. Shoyab? And then I'll go to Mr. Khan.
Yes, if we get the single travel document, that's a hope. It's been confirmed that we are going to Canada. So we will do our 100 best to make a way to get to a third country, because now we know we are going to Canada and we're being reunited with our family members.
Thank you, Mr. Khan.
Yes, very important question. I think the single, the document to cross into Pakistan is the main focal point, because as far as the documentation, we have provided all the information that IRCC wanted. Now, where we're stuck at is, moving families from Afghanistan into Pakistan. And once they're in Pakistan, Canada has brought people under the SIM program with no passports, no ID cards. The families of the people that work with the Canadian embassy and stuff. So if you can do it there, you can do it for our families.
So this is the essence of the question. The Canadian government has made that option available for Ukrainian nationals. And so to this question, are you asking the Canadian government to treat you with the same special immigration measures to which they have given to Ukrainian nationals? Just a quick yes or no answer from the three of you. Go in reverse. Mr. Khan?
Yes, definitely.
Mr.
Mr.
Swab?
Syed?
If being human matters for Canada, yes, for sure.
Mr. Piazzi?
Yes,
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you. Now, your problem also is this. There are over 300 families to which applications has been made, and only 35% of them have received a file number, a UCI number, or a G number. And those were the applications that were submitted prior to January the 12th. Applications submitted after January the 12th, 65% of the 300 applications, none of those have even received a response. No file numbers, no GI numbers. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay, so now your problem is this. So when you bring this up with IRCC, or at least when I do bring these kinds of issues up with IRCC, they say that they can't help those families because they don't have a file number. So without a file number, you cannot get a single travel journey document. Is that correct?
And that is correct. And also, if they're not going to assign or open our application, who will assign this file number to our application? So they should do their job and put some officers on our application as they promise will be getting done within 2 weeks. It's more than 100 days now.
At the Immigration Committee, the committee actually passed a motion calling on the government to treat others in regions in conflict with the same measures that's been afforded to Ukrainian nationals, and to also for the government to waive the refugee determination requirement. Is this what you're asking for of the Minister of Immigration? Mrs. Fuzzy?
Yes, we do ask this, and also we are asking this. They made a new obstacle, as I mentioned in my speech. They said a RAP program will be not available to families or extended families. So my question is, when they come to Canada, if you want to rent a house, they ask you for income support or income proof. So our families will have zero income support. Where will they live? So my question is, they should support our families with RAP program as they do for the rest of other programs, refugee programs.
So in other words, you're just basically asking for the Canadian government to treat you equally than that of others.
Treat us equally and fairly and do their moral obligation as we supported the Canadian soldier missions, and we put our families at risk with the Taliban because of our enduring relationship to the Canadian soldiers.
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan. So appreciate your time. And now we will go to the second round of questioning. And I would love to welcome, Mr. O'Toole to the committee, and I welcome Honorable O'Toole to take your spot for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start off with two things. I'd like to speak directly to you, Mr. Faizi, Mr. Khan, and Mr. Shoaib, and say two things. First, thank you for your service alongside our men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, alongside our aid workers, our diplomats, and our presence in Afghanistan between 2001 and 2014, the largest mission Canada has ever engaged in beyond our shores. You were part of that mission, and as Ms. Kwan said, we're part of our Canadian Armed Forces to make sure that we could have interpretation, cultural outreach, and do the work we did. The second thing I want to say is I want to apologize on behalf of Canada. We have failed interpreters and many contractors going back many years. It's been horrible watching the fall of Kabul and watching the scramble, and in your words, Mr. Khan, to listen to our cries and to see inaction. It's unacceptable, I think, to all parties and all parliamentarians, past and present. So my apologies. This committee is intended to find out how we failed, where we dropped the ball, and how we can remedy and quickly provide as much help as possible to people that are left behind. So my question to you, Mr. Faizi, you would have come in under the 2009 program. You arrived in 2011. That program only required 12 months of cumulative service as an employee or contractor, an injury or individualized risk, and some sort of positive recommendation or documentation. Many interpreters left service with commendations, certificates, thank yous, pay confirmations. Those documents obviously were used by you. Are those still readily available? A certificate of thanks, for example, with many of the interpreters and their families still on the ground in Afghanistan?
Thank you, Mr. Tolly. Some are available with the families, and some we brought it with us as a record. We are still have it here. However, some are being burned by the families, as you may aware. Do you hear me?
Yes. So you're saying some documents have been...
Yes, as you may aware, the Taliban keep searching house by house. They started from Kabul and widened to provinces. So some of our friends are keep burning their certificates back home.
You mentioned at the top, sir, you asked us to stop playing politics.
Mr. O'Toole, can you hear me? Mr.
I can.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I have the time scheduled 3 minutes for each of the Liberal and the Conservative, and then one and a half to Mr. Bruno Duceppe and Madam Jenny Kwan. So I have to come back to you in the next turn. So
it's not 5 minutes for the second round, Mr. Chair?
It just, this is the way we do it. This is the way we came up with the agreement. So I just didn't want to do it, but otherwise, if I go that way, I'll be way over time. So thank you very much. And I'm going to go to now Mr. El Khoury for 3 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Welcome to our witnesses today, and I can tell you that our hearts are with you. We thank you from the very bottom of our hearts for the sacrifices that you have made to help the Canadian Armed Forces. There's a very important thing that I would like to clear up. You referred to the situation in Ukraine. The Ukrainian people have had to leave Ukraine without having passports, and it
cannot leave Afghanistan without document. Et le problème aussi que
and also the travel document that is issued by the Canadian government is good to be used within Canada. The government cannot accept, not even for one day, that document. So it has to be clear. First of all, are there flights for the United States or for Canada from Kabul now? Can you answer that question?
N'importe quel invité.
Any of our guests can answer.
Yes, there are flights available from Kabul, from 5 major airports of Afghanistan. There's flights happening to UAE, Qatar, India, Pakistan.
Je m'excuse, j'ai demandé.
I apologize. I am talking about the United States and say Great Britain.
United Kingdom. That was my question.
As in flights from Afghanistan to Britain, and I have no data or information like about the flights, but I'm pretty sure if international airlines can come to Afghanistan and they can go to any regional country, I'm sure they can go to anywhere in the Europe.
Mr. Piazzi, do you want to add something?
Yes, as Canada and United States best ally with Qataris, and Qatar is controlling the airport in Kabul, so they can create flights through Qataris to Qatar, and then they can process and bring it to Canada, the applicants.
Mr. Al-Khoury.
Yes, je crois.
I believe that you came to Canada under the special immigration measures for interpreters in 2007 and 2011. How much time was there between your arrival in Canada and your application?
My personal application took 6 months, and also we had a Canadian courses available in Kandahar, so we had zero problems our families is having now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Khoury. Your 3 minutes is up. Now we're going to go to Mr. Bruno Decep for 90 seconds. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Chair, I don't have a lot of time, but I think that I certainly respect Mr. Al-Khoury, who is one of my favorite colleagues, about what he said about the Ukraine. But I want to ask about different criteria for Afghanis and Ukrainians. But I also want to talk about biometric testing. Mr. Khan, you said we worked for the Canadian Army. We shared facilities. Isn't there a dissonance? Isn't there a dichotomy in problems? Why is it that certain groups, and I agree that some groups have undergone greater risk, but why you, Afghan translators, would be obliged to take biometric testing and not others? Why?
Mr. Khan.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for pointing that out. That's one of our main debates and arguments with RSCC, that we are the people with the highest background checks and security clearances. We were sleeping in the same quarters with the Canadian higher ups, including Canadian generals, and we were attending the meetings with Canadian senators. So you're telling us that with no criminal or no problems like dark matters on any of our past or present, and you have all our information. So why demand such higher restrictions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno Decep. Your time is up.
Can I have 15 seconds?
Later, please. I'm going to go to Madam Jenny Kwan for 90 seconds. Please go ahead.
I just want to follow up on the documentation question. So you've all been vetted and to an extreme level. Will you all vouch for your family members?
Who do you want to start?
Yeah, 100%.
Mr. Who do you want to go, Madam Kwan? All of them?
All of them, please.
Okay, Mr. Piazzi?
Yes, 100%.
And Mr. Shoaib?
Yes, for sure, we do want that.
And that's the case for all of the 300 applicants in terms of the families.
Yes.
Is that what you understand it to be?
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
So on this basis, because people are forced to burn their documentations and they will no longer have the certifications and the various documents, should the Canadian government not then bring your family members here to Canada safely and then go through all the paperwork as is being done for some others?
Mr. Piazzi?
Yes, that will be a hope, and absolutely.
Mr. Khan?
Yes, indeed. That's our top demand or request.
Mr. Shoaib?
Yes, we do want that, and that's our demand.
Madam Kwan?
So if that's being done, if the government waives documentation requirements, if they issue your single travel journey documentation, you'll be able to get to a third country. And then the last thing is Canada, the Prime Minister just announced this weekend that they will be bringing evacuation flights for Ukrainian nationals. If they brought you evacuation flights in third countries, then we'll be able to bring your family members here to Canada safely. Is this all what you're asking for? Just a quick answer.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan, your time is up, and on behalf of all the members of Parliament, even the ones that didn't get a spot to speak, we appreciate your service, Mr. Fiazi, Mr. Khan, and Mr. Swab, and thank you for appearing today and bringing the information forward to this committee. Very best to you and your families.
Thank you
so I'm going to suspend the meeting for a few minutes here, please. Mr. O'Toole, I'm sure I was just carried away, and I wanted to give
Can
you
I say
5 minutes.
one thing? Just can Mr. O'Toole send or email the question he was trying to ask us? That was very important, I believe.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you. So
Yeah,
meeting is suspended for a few minutes, and Mr. O'Toole, I really apologize because this is the way we set it up, so we give time to every member. So.
Mr. Faizi, my office will reach out as well.
Chair, before we...
Second panel today, and on behalf of the committee members, I would like to welcome our witnesses, former interpreters for Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Shafiul Muhammad Jahid and Mr. Ahmed Shah Sayed. And from the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, we welcome Ms. Reddy, the manager of Afghan Operations Secretariat, and welcome to all of you. And you have 5 minutes to speak. And please make sure that you have your timer. And also, if you are only English, then you got to pick up on your right-hand side bottom. There's a language selection, whether English or French, because we want to make sure that when French speaker speaks, you are able to pick up in English. So your button should be on English or French or, okay, got it? I'm asking the witnesses.
Yes,
Okay,
got it.
got it. And Mr. Sayed, you got it?
Just trying.
On the right-hand side bottom, there's a language selection. English or French, or it might say.
Got it.
Got it, good, thank you. And Ms. Reddy?
Thank you, I have it.
Okay, good. Now, everything is working all good, and we can start with Mr. Jahid for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and all members of the Afghan committee. My name is Safiullah Muhammad Zahid. I work as an interpreter with Canadian Armed Forces in Afghanistan, Kandahar from 2006 to 2012 May. And I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak here about the situation in Afghanistan for our families. When the unthinkable happened in Afghanistan, it was the worst night for all of us. Everyone was anxious about their family members' lives. I personally had no idea what to do or what door to knock for help. I could not stop thinking what would happen to my family, as I have already lost my best friend, my dad, in 2013 due to the employment of Canadian Armed Forces. He was brutally shot in the heart. I was and still am scared that the same can happen to my family, whatever I have left of. Since then, I have been moving them around Afghanistan. I have 4 brothers, and 2 of them went missing when the Taliban took over. One made it to Turkey, and he was smuggled and almost died on the way, but the other one is still missing, and we have no idea where he is. Their children and the rest of their families and my families are on the move from one house to another, from one city to another, from one province to another. It has been 7 months and we have moved to 4 or 5 provinces. And it's been almost 6 to 7 weeks that I haven't spoken to them because of the media, because of all the contacts that we cannot get in touch with them. It's not just my story. It's most of the interpreters. Like personally, I know 2 people, two of my best friends here. One lost his sister who was killed in school, and the other one, I hadn't talked to him for a long time, but the other day I called him. So I was just asking him as a friend, like, how are you doing? And he started crying. And I said, why are you crying? And he said that I have lost 11 family members. Excuse me. And he said that I have lost 11 family members since Taliban has taken over. And I said, why don't you come forward and talk to the government, email IRCC? And he said, what's the benefit? Because you have been having meetings every week with the IRCC. Have you gained anything? Because you're still like, there are 75% people who are like their files have not been seen by the IRCC members. After talking to the government for 3 or 4 weeks, every day, every Monday, finally the government started a pathway for us. And it opened in last December. And it's been 5 months that we have submitted all our applications. So the big problem we have is right now, the initial application was 33 pages. I have all the form numbers that I have for every family member. So guess I have four brothers and all total 13 to 15 members. For everyone, 33 pages application times that to the members. And then we got more emails. We have been contacted by 3 different offices asking for the similar information, same kind of same kind of forms. As of last week, most of our members, most of our friends, they got emails from 3 different offices, asking from 3 different offices, and asking 16 more forms. So I don't know how or what do we cry or who do we cry to? Because on one way we are running from the government of Taliban, and on the other hand, we have our government who's making more obstacles, who's making it more harder for us to fill in or complete our applications. In 5 months, if they cannot give us a G number, UCI number, or complete our application, how can, because we have so much more to come, so how can they bring our families? Because this was supposed to be an emergency evacuation, but instead it's been treated as a family sponsorship program where we have to pay for everything. We have to file hundreds of forms, and I think that's just making an excuse that okay, because there will be a problem in somewhere in a forum where they're asking about my dad's history 40 years ago, what he was doing when the Russians were there. Well, when the Russians were in my country, they killed 2 of my uncles and 2 of my aunts. They bombed them while they had like animals in it.
Mr. Jahid, your time is up. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're way over time, and I will come back to you. And thank you. And Mr. Syed, we can come to you now for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, the honorable members of the community, for the special situation in Afghanistan. Thanks for the opportunity given to me and my friends and my colleagues to bring and address our concerns and problems to the community. So I have got 3 different conversations. The first thing is that most of the points were covered by my friends, but I'm calling the government, and I'm calling the federal government, I'm calling the Honorable Justin Trudeau and the Honorable Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, that they have to find a safe passage for our families to leave Afghanistan. The government have to work with their international allies. They have to find the safe passage for our families to leave Afghanistan as soon as possible. It is more than 7 months that we are going through this problem, and we have problem with IRCC, we have problem with the Immigration Office, we have problem with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have problem especially with the federal government. I call the government, and I call the IRCC, Sean Fraser, Honorable Minister, that we are tired of your wrong politics. We are tired of this politics that our innocent families are getting the sacrifices. This needs to be a politics step, and the government and Honorable Minister and Minister of Immigration needs to lead this in the right politics, in the right direction. This is not the right direction that we are facing right now. They have to find the safe pathways, and they have to put pressure on the Taliban, work with Qataris, put more resources in the country and the region to find the safe pathways for our families' evacuation from Afghanistan. The second thing is that, again, I call the Honorable Minister of Immigration that will he admit that he failed in this process? If he doesn't admit that he's not failed in this process, in this policy, how long does we have to wait to see our families? How long we have to wait when we expect to have the process? When we will be the witness of one single family is coming from our group to Canada? Why not this is happening? What is exactly going on that we don't know? Where is the sensitive information? We are asking the Minister of Immigration, please be faithful with us, be truthful with us, be respectful with us, treat us with the fear, treat us with respect. We are the veterans. We work with the Canadian forces shoulder to shoulder. We work with the Canadian forces along the side. We were there with the Canadian missions, so don't leave us right now hopeless. And also, I am calling the community members that please ask the government and ask the IRCC that why they are delaying this process, why the packages are not getting approved, even if there is not enough information, if there is missed documents, why they are not contacting the principal applicant and send them information and ask for extra information, and why they not get back to our friends. We went through the hunger strike, 2 hunger strikes right in front of the parliament. Nobody came to us in the state of Mr. Halland and Jeannie Cowan. We don't deserve to go on that cold weather and stay under the rain and raise our voice and nobody pay attention for us. That is unfair. So I'm asking the government, and I'm asking the member of this committee to please talk with the IRCC office, talk with the IRCC representatives, ask them question them in the Common of House. Why they are delaying this process? What is exactly going on with this government? What is exactly going on with this cover government that they have the power and they do nothing? Why they are not finding another safe pathways for our families? Why they are not bringing our families from Pakistan that are waiting more than 3 months? Why they are not assigning the file numbers that we send the packages more than 6 months? They have to accept. The honorable minister need to accept. He admit that he failed in this policy. He dropped the ball. So we have to find a solution, and we have to find the safe pathways, and we have to work together. And I'm calling here all the honorable community members that we have to work together and find the safe pathways for our families, and we pick it up where they dropped the ball. This is all politics, and we are tired of the double-faced politics of this government, and we are tired of the politics of the honorable Minister of Immigration. They don't avoid any single document from us. They are asking extra documents. They are asking extra emails. They are asking extra information. They are sending emails by the emails. They are bombarding us with the paperwork. Why we are not worried about our family's life? We are worried about the paperwork. Move our families to the safe zone and then do the paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sayed. And on behalf of all members, I do appreciate your time here and your service to Canada and the way you're asking for the safe passage. I'm sure the members will be able to come back to you on this. So Mr. Jahid and Ms. Said, thank you again on behalf of members as well. Now we can go to Ms. Reddy for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable members of Parliament, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. I bring warm greetings from the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, home of the Treaty 7 First Nations and home to the people of Métis Region 3. Events that happened in Afghanistan in August were unbeknownst to all of us. This segment of humanity was displaced beyond all expectations from their natural way of living, and they were forced to seek refuge in safer havens. In August of 2021, Canada evacuated 3,700 Afghan nationals and brought them into the Toronto port of entry and housed them in 4 hotels. We literally had 8 days as a sector to organize ourselves to provide settlement and settlement and integration support to our newfound families. We were very strategic. Even though we had 6 to 8 days, we wanted to have a fully fledged strategic governance structure that spoke notably to the roles and responsibilities, one that was nationally coordinated and locally implemented, one that was equitable, one that was socially just, and one where every single RAP service provider could take part in. We wanted to engage all resettlement sector partners so they all had an equal and equitable voice at the table. We wanted to assign roles and responsibilities so everybody became part of this national collaborative. Communication between IRCC and the sector was seamless during this time. Once we designed this fully fledged governance structure, we actioned it into a national steering committee meeting. We met every Wednesday to ensure that we were all on board and we were all supportive of our new Afghan family that arrived in Canada. Leadership was at its absolute ultimate. It was transformative and it was distributive leadership. Everybody took a stance. It went beyond the single agency leadership domain and into a fully fledged collaborative collective impact. The sector took a trauma-informed practice because we had to address trauma-informed individuals that went through atrocities that you and I will never be able to understand what these individuals went through. We also had to ensure that our staff were aptly available and able to support these individuals. So we wanted to ensure that they had the correct health and wellness to also support the individuals. We received the 10,050 Afghan nationals that arrived. What have we done in 7.5 months? Corporate Canada came to the forefront to support the Afghan nationals. They attended our National Steering Committee meetings. Canadian Tire, Airbnb, Amazon.com, Air Canada came to provide support in the way of employment, donations, and any possible goodwill to the newfound families. We also had Veterans Affairs Canada that sent us a list of 3,000 interpreters who wanted, and their families, who wanted to support the Afghan families. In line with UNHCR, we developed a needs assessment tool to ensure that we learned as much as we could about the Afghan population so we could better serve them and not preempt what they needed, but to ask them what they needed. And we wanted to start at the point and meet them halfway and not start from point zero. Airbnb came in and offered us $500,000 to ensure that we had temporary accommodation in place ready for the Afghan families. Uber provided us $100,000 to ensure that we had transportation for the Afghan families. We created a generic email account. Up to date, we've received sent and received 34,000 emails to individuals that wanted to support the families. Created an Afghan resettlement website. Of course, there were challenges. COVID-19, we've received large-scale movements years before. However, Afghan nationals were evacuated during COVID-19. We had to quarantine them in the hotels. We had to ensure that their health was checked and their COVID vaccinations were provided to them. Housing was another challenge that they encountered. Of course, the RAP income support was not sufficient to provide their housing needs. So what we did was, just until recently, we engaged in 345 housing partners across Canada in a national event, Refugee Housing and Partnership event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Reddy, and appreciate your service to humanity. And now we can start with the round of questionings. Honorable O'Toole, sorry I got carried away in the first one emotionally. I was a little bit drained. So now you have your 6 minutes, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can always give me some bonus time at your discretion too. That'd be great. First off, Ms. Reddy, thank you to you and your countless volunteers. The response from organized groups, faith organizations, military and veteran families, I've heard from many of them, it's astounding, so thank you. I have a quick question for Mr. Sayed and Mr. Zahed. Thank you for your service. We are sorry that we are in this process. How long was the process between you applying to you getting on the ground? Just a short answer from you both, please. Mr. Zahed first.
For me, it was 3 months in 2012.
Okay, 3 months. Sayed, Mr. Sayed?
For me, it was 2 months on 2012.
2 months, 3 months. It was 4 months for James Akam back in 2015, 2016, when there was no politics. When I spoke to Minister McCallum about an interpreter who had been left behind that had the military vouching for him, and he was here in 4 months because there was no politics. After that, under Minister Hussein, Karim Amiri, no. Rohidin Zia, no. Alam Khan, no. Niaz Mohammed, no. Mohammed Wardak, no. James Bazan, myself, and several other members of parliament, all sides, have been trying for 7 years to bring people before the fall of Afghanistan in August. How many do you know are eligible based on the criteria from 2009, 2011, 1 year of service and some sort of recommendation? I'm just talking the interpreters or contractors. Their family should come with them. But I told Mr. McCallum it was several hundred a few years ago. That would make several thousand with families and extended. We had 7 years to do this. How many do you know that are eligible right now that we could bring to Canada?
There are so many. Personally, I know like 5 of my friends who are interpreters. They have their documents, some of them. One that I know of, he burned his document. I had my personal documents, we burned them. So 5 people that I know that they have applied to this process, but they have received nothing from the government. And that's been now 8 months or 7, 8 months that they have applied.
Mr. Sayed, do you want to say something?
Yes, I know dozens of people. They're calling me every day, and I have direct contact with them on the ground. They work with the Canadian forces more than 4 or 5 years. They work under my own supervising, and they're eligible, but they cannot make it to come to Canada.
Honorable O'Toole.
Thank you both. So both of you offhand know dozens of people like Mr. Akam who came here in a few months with documentation. I'll be tabling these documents for the record, letters for many years, with certificates that the military officers that signed them can vouch for these people. This is not rocket science. And the fact that you're here, in some cases going on hunger strikes for people to show some leadership, I want to thank you. I want you to continue to work with this committee, because the military, public affairs, and veterans affairs, foreign affairs, we have the documentations to confirm this. It was a lack of political action, and we've made it more complicated by waiting. So I would like to see an end to the politics. In your case, Mr. Zayed, what type of documentation did you show? Was it a certificate of approval or appreciation from the military?
I had more than 20 certificates because I had been working for a long time for Canadian forces and some NATO other countries. I had to show my certificates, my appreciation letters, and a recommendation letter from a colonel who's currently a general, retired general. And that was it.
One of the letters I sent to Minister Hussein, the interpreter had served alongside Minister Sejan in Afghanistan, and we couldn't get them to move. How many do you know have stayed in touch with members of the Canadian Armed Forces through social media or through Facebook when they were able to get to those services over the last few years?
There are many. There are many people that they're in contact with their mentors. We used to call them our mentors. And they still are. And their mentors are doing their best on from this side. But all the problem is coming from IRCC and immigration, that it's not being coordinated correctly, and it's not followed up correctly. And as we said earlier, that it's been 7 months. If the ministry or the IRCC cannot do something in Afghanistan, the least that they could do here in Canada was assign G number and UCI number for the people who have submitted their application. But they have not even done that yet. And as earlier, my other friend Faizi, when he mentioned that if the IRCC had worked on one case per day, I think we would have most of our cases and everything. And when it comes to the paperwork and certificates and all that, as earlier I mentioned that the initial application was 33 pages. I have all the form numbers. About that, we had to reply to a few emails, send more documents, and then as of last week, we received another 16 pages forms, and they're giving us 30 days to submit them. And it's been 6 weeks that I haven't talked to them. So how can I fill in those forms?
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Jayed. Mr. O'Toole, your time is up, and we're going to go to Mr.
Well, thank you both very much. And Mr. Chair, I'll be tabling the letters I referenced for the record.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go to Mr. Sidhu for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for taking the time to be with us today. I want to thank you for your service as well, and it's very. I don't know the words to say. Listening to you here today, and kind of hearing what you're going through. And it's very unfortunate that the Taliban is in charge now and making things incredibly difficult for so many in the country, including so many women and girls. You hear these horrific stories coming out of Afghanistan. I've heard, about the Taliban preventing Afghans from leaving Afghanistan if they don't have travel documents. And I'd like to know more from Mr. Zahid and Mr. Saeed about how many individuals from your group of friends or people that you know, have a valid travel document and are able to leave, and how many that the Taliban has prevented leaving.
Mr. Jayed. Mr. Jayed.
It doesn't have to be exact numbers. I just want to get an understanding.
At the beginning, we have 0 travel documents. So out of those 5,000 family members, we have gotten nothing, and that's what we are trying to get single travel document from the government that we can go to. And when it comes to stopping, since most of us or all of us, we have our families hidden, right? Like sometimes I don't know where they are till I hear from them. So we do not have, we cannot dare to go to any office, anything, or just come even forward. We even try to avoid our relatives. We just do not want to be seen. So we go to a completely different province or completely different city. So we have 0 travel documents or anything that can facilitate our travel.
Mr. Syed.
Thank you. This is a very important question. Since the Taliban running the government and they have control of the institutions, our families will not opt in to go get a travel document or a Afghan passport to cross the border. That's why we are calling on the government, and I'm asking the IRCC to issue a single travel document journey through the High Commissioner in Qatar or through the High Commissioner in Islamabad and send it for our families. That way, with having a travel document with an electronic Tazkira or national ID, our families can make to cross the border to go to the third country, either to Qatar or to go to the Islamabad, and then they will start the process. So in this moment, we don't have any single documents like that.
Thank you,
Mr. Zahid. And I'd like to ask Ms. Reddy a question as well. First of all, thank you for everything you're doing on the humanitarian front and helping resettle Afghan nationals. Roughly how many Afghan nationals are accessing your settlement services? If you can shed some light on that.
We have 34 resettlement agencies across the country. And if they have destined in a resettlement location, then all of them have access to the RAP income support and all of the services. So they come in with within a few days, they're assessed. They are asked about their education and about their language. They have language assessments, and they transferred over to settlement services. If it's a more intricate case, it goes into case management and then into settlement services. So every single person that has come in as a government-assisted refugee will definitely get resettlement assistance program services. So they've all come in as government-assisted refugees. They've been evacuated. They will all have resettlement services.
Thank you for that. And in your opening remarks, you mentioned how corporate Canada has shown goodwill and stepped up to support resettlement of Afghan nationals and supporting the many needs. You mentioned the generosity of corporate Canada. And in terms of settlement needs, what are your greatest settlement needs at the current moment?
So basically what they've been offering thus far is they've been offering employment. A lot of them want to employ the Afghan nationals. But what we've done, we've also asked them to look at other refugees because we didn't want the other refugees to feel that the optics wasn't looking good. So when it comes to settlement, they want to definitely employ them immediately. They have various positions across the country. So all the resettlement agencies need to do is connect with their clients and speak to their clients, look at their education, and connect with the corporate Canada. So over 35 corporate Canada vendors have provided their support and their information to us. And it's been really amazing because we filled quite a few positions in many of the big vendors.
Thank you, Ms. Reddy. And Mr. Zahid, if I can come to you, we know in Afghanistan there are many countries operating there, helping out, whether that's humanitarian or on the ground. Do you know of other countries that were able to help some of your colleagues and their families out of Afghanistan, right now on a consistent basis, so we can get an understanding?
As far as I have heard, it's Germany, they have evacuated few families. Holland is trying to get out some of the families. So it's all up to the government. If what we have been told is that the government does not have any authority over Pakistan, or we do not accept Taliban's government. But then there are alternative ways where they can talk to Qatars, as my other friends, colleagues mentioned. But that's what other countries have been doing. Get in contact with Qataris, because Qataris have good contacts with or good connections with Taliban.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayed. Mr. Sidhu, your time is up, and thank you. And we will go to Mr. Bruno de Sepp. Mr. Bruno de Sepp for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You will allow me to be sure that our witnesses can hear the interpretation from French to English. Can they hear? Yes? Madame Reddy? Mr. Zayed? All three. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Zayed and Mr. Said for their incredible service, and also Madame Reddy for the work that she is doing on the ground. I asked the witnesses of the previous panel what they thought about the two different ways of handling immigrants. Mr. O'Toole was also asking about that, and comparing that to what happened in the past. I see that there is this difference. And so what can be done with respect to the Ukrainian crisis, the IRCC's response to the Ukrainian situation and to Afghan situation has been different, and also the Syrian situation. When you impose biometric measurements of Syrians when they arrive here, and that was done by the Border Services Agency of Canada, and they're bringing in the Ukrainians right now. So I'm asking you, is there two different ways of handling the Afghan crisis with respect to other crises that have occurred in the world? Perhaps Mr. Zaid can answer, followed by his colleague.
It definitely. Say it. Go ahead.
Yes. So I put this question back to the government. I asked exactly what you asked. I asked the government. I asked the IRCC that, is our blood different than the Ukrainian? Or our life different than the Ukrainian? Hopefully, we do appreciate what the government doing with the Ukrainians, save their lives. They are being humans. We do appreciate. But at the meantime, we are not losing the track. We hope to not lose the track. Don't forget Afghanistan. Don't forget our families. Don't forget the families of those Afghan interpreters that they work with you side by side, and you successfully done your mission. Don't forget about the Afghan families that now the Taliban are looking for us, searching for our families, going door by door, and if they find out any evidence that we work with the Canadian forces, they will destroy our life. They will kidnap our families. Other way, side by way or no way, they will get our families out of the houses and will be disappeared. We do appreciate what is the government exactly doing with the Ukrainian, but we ask the government to do at least some facilitate for our families, sending those facilitation letters for our families to cross the border, send those single travel journey documents to our families to cross the border. And the very important point is, stop the politics. Don't play with us politics. We are suffer from this politics. Our families are the victims of this politics, and we are tired of this wrong politics, and we are tired of this wrong leaderships.
Thank you, Mr. Said. I know it hasn't been very long that I've been in Parliament. I'm a young member of Parliament, and I'm directly affected by what you are saying. I'm very much touched by it. If you think of the situation with the Syrians as well, with our friends that were there at our side for every intervention, what is your opinion now, Mr.? What do you say about that, sir? Mr. Zayed, please.
Well, we never compare ourselves with other countries, but I mean, we appreciate what the government is doing for the other countries. As for the Ukrainians, as I mentioned earlier, that my personal family has been affected or have been the victims of Russian war. My two uncles and two aunts were killed, and I could feel their pain. So we appreciate what's been done for Ukrainians, but the only thing, as every one of us is mentioning the same thing, that we want it to be treated the same as other countries. Why there has been like our process stopped immediately as the Ukrainians started, and there is no backup plan, there is no plan B or anything for it. Since January, nothing has been done for our application. In a matter of weeks, thousands of Ukrainians without like very minimum requirements, they were brought here to Canada and resettled. And we have appreciated that, and we do appreciate that. But at the same time, Afghanistan should not be forgotten as it has been forgotten. And it's been 2-3 weeks. We have been meetings, media, hunger strike, and still it hasn't worked, or it hasn't touched the IRCC or the immigration yet. I mean, we were expecting to at least show us that we are doing something, at least show us in one way or in another way. But instead, they're updating their website, making it harder and harder for us to sponsor my family. As of this morning, when I was reading their website, they said that interpreters will have to pay for their expenses when they arrive here, or for their travel. Travel has never been free, but we understand that they can get a loan. But
sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Jaid, and I'm sorry, Mr. Brunel, time is up.
Désolé,
Madam Madam Kwan for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank our witnesses for their presentations, and particularly I'd like to thank the former Afghan interpreters for your service. As I said to the previous panel, you are part of the Canadian military. There is no question about that. And at this juncture, the Canadian government needs to do what is right for you and your families by bringing them here to Canada expeditiously. So to that point where people are stuck, it's been more than 6 months where over 300 families' applications have not even been properly processed. 35% of them, while received a file number, are still not here. Not one of them are here, and 65% of them have not even gotten a G number. So to that end, on the question around differential treatment, one of the measures to which the Canadian government has given to Ukraine nationals is what is called a single travel journey document. And this would then, can you tell me, if your family members and others like your family members were to receive the single travel document, journey document from the Canadian government, would they then be able to use that document and travel to a third country and be able to fly to Canada safely?
Yes. If the government, if the IRCC and the High Commissioner of Canada issue a single travel document journey with a facilitation letter that facilitates our families, yes, that is possible. That's exactly what they did with the humanitarian program. That's exactly what they did for the Afghan nation that they're bringing right now. So there is people that coming out of Afghanistan with that single travel document. That single travel document work as a visa, a temporary visa. If our family have that document, they can leave the airport, or they can cross the border, or they can board on the airplane and go to another countries.
Thank you. And Mr. Syed, I want to ask this question of you. Because of the delay in processing from the Canadian government, because family members have been stuck hiding from house to house, street to street, on the run, and people's lives are in jeopardy. And your brother is now, one is missing, and other families are also having lost their loved ones. Is it the case that the longer the Canadian government delayed this process, the more family members would be lost? How big is the risk for them?
It's huge. It's unthinkable, and that's what we have been mentioning, that IRCC is keeping us busy with forms and and all that screening and everything. We have no objection with over any screening. So the problem we have is that we do not have time. Time is very limited for us. So the more time the IRCC spend on our application, the closer Taliban get to our families, their intelligence, their information, their sources are gonna go through, get to our families. And meantime, our families, like personally, I have 15 members living in one room. So because of lack of money, I cannot send them money from here. I cannot afford that much money. And the government is asking for forms, and now they have to come back to their house at some point if they run out completely 100% out of the money. And then it will be very easy for Taliban to catch them because they're already, we have been on the list. As earlier I mentioned that my dad was shot by Taliban in 2013. And since then I have been moving my family around, but not as much as these days, because at that time we had government, we had NATO forces all over the country, but right now we have nothing over there. So yeah, the IRCC, we think the IRCC is wasting the time and keeping us busy with all filling of those forms and giving more time to Taliban to get to our families.
We talked about waiving documentation requirements, because it's impossible for people to produce those, especially for families who are worried that they might be caught by the Taliban with documents, that they would absolutely be punished. And so people are burning their documents. So are you calling for the Canadian government to waive the documentation requirements? And would your family members who's been supporting the Canadian military on our missions abroad be willing to vouch for your family members? And should that be sufficient for the government to accept, given the high level security screening that you have already gone through? And then for those family members of yours, once they're safely here on Canadian soil, we can then go through the process of the paperwork. Mr. Syed and then Mr.
Yes.
Saeed.
We have all the documentations and all the screens with the Ministry of National Defense. The Ministry of National Defense, I was speaking with them. I have a couple meetings with the Ministry of National Defense. They send all the documents to IRCC. If the IRCC and the government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs are making excuses, the documentation, that's what we are asking. Don't bring our families directly to Canada. Send them to the third country. Send them somewhere that they are safe. Send them somewhere at least the Taliban will not kill them. Then start the process. All these documentations, all the screens, all the security problems, whatever they're coming up with the nonsense information sending for us are just because they're wasting our time. It's
Mr.
because the
Saeed?
politics game, because they're trying to take the credit based on our families. So we are tired of this politics. We are tired of extra information and the extra forms that they can send these forms 6 months ago, and now they are sending the forms now, and we have to wait another 3 months.
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan. Your time is up. I'm going to go to the second round without wasting any more time. I'm going to go to my own member, Honorable Madam Finley, for 150 seconds, 2.5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't waste too much time except to say I'm honored to hear your testimonies today, and I thank you for being here and for your service to our nation. Mr. Syed, you said that we were there with the Canadian mission. Don't leave us hopeless. You also say your expectations are that the government will be faithful, truthful, and respectful, all of which I agree with, and I would add another word, realistic. Because when I hear your testimony of both you and Mr. Zayed, that's what I think is in part lacking here, which means, as you said, there must be other political reasons or reasons unknown to the Canadian public as to why the delays and why the volume of process. So, Mr. Zayed, I think you were talking about 33 pages of documents, now another 16 more. You haven't spoken to people in 6 weeks in your family, and yet, you have 30 days. What kind of access on the ground does your family have to computers, internet, and cell phones? How realistic is this to be asking them to fill out all this kind of paperwork where they are now?
At the moment, I have no idea where they are. And at the time of the initial application, I had to arrange where they had to go to a cafe and then use a public internet. But not, and those days Talibans were not that much mixed up to the society as they are now, which now most of the stores, cafes, everything is mostly controlled by them. So I can't imagine now how to get a hold of my brother or my mom or whoever, mostly my brother is helping me with these forms. So I have to find ways, when they call me, and then I have to fill up the forms here when asking them, because we fill up some forms that we could represent them and we could help them with their filling up their forms.
So would you agree with me that it's almost impossible for your family members far away from you to access what they would need to do all this themselves?
Definitely,
Thank
100%.
you. And
Thank you
Mr.
very much,
Syed,
Madam Finley. The time is
not very
up.
much time.
I'm so sorry. And now
Thank
we're
you.
going to go to Sister Salma Zahid for 2.5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to all the witnesses. I know it's not easy talking about the issues you are facing. My question, I don't have much time, but my first question is for Ms. Reddy. Ms. Reddy, as the more Afghan nationals are arriving, what would you say that how they are settling in as a new life in Canada? Are there any special needs the women or the youth have, or anything you have seen particularly?
Yes, so basically a language assessment for some of the individuals. However, having said that, a lot of them are very, very well educated. And I find that some of the employment that's been offered is not suitable for them because they're way above that education. When it comes to the children and youth, a lot of them do speak English, but Dari and Pashto, of course, some of them speak as a home language. So we do have school support in that respect, where the schools have a multicultural language support system for the children. And we have the youth organizations that support them. We have settlement workers in schools that are immigrants and refugees themselves, and they work very closely with the families and the children to ensure that they settled and integrated in the school system from a culturally and social integration perspective. With the women, we're finding that they are very learned and they want to go back to school and they want to continue studying here. Especially the robotics team, they're superbly brilliant. And we're finding that a lot of the private schools are definitely sponsoring a lot of the young girls that come in with special skills. So when it comes to supports, I think the children are very well taken care of because we have a Swiss program. When it comes to the English language learning and support, we have an ESL program. They take their assessments and then we send them to language classes if it's needed. So when it comes to the resources are fully developed for every stage in their settlement and integration journey, and we ensure they have availability to these resources, especially for the first year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Okay.
And your time is up, and I'm going to Mr. Bruno de Sepp for 75 seconds. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Madam Reddy, I didn't have the opportunity to ask you a question. Do you think, but we have to make a report, of course, with recommendations. Do you think there should be a mechanism put in place, say in the IRCC, to respond to emergencies? So should Canada develop a mechanism where we can turn on a dime if we have to respond to an emergency situation? Because it seems to me none of that exists right now. And we have all these different refugees throughout the world. When there's a crisis like the Afghan crisis or others that come up, there should be a mechanism. Do you not agree?
Ms. Reddy.
I totally agree. So when the Afghan situation unfolded in August, we created a generic email account from the ground. These were the settlement service providers across across the country. We received 2,500 emails from Afghan nationals who found our website link on the IRCC page, and they were emailing us. IRCC created an account, and we forwarded these emails. That account is no longer operable, and they're continuing to respond, email us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno Desap. Now
I also, Chair, I want to thank all the witnesses who have been with us today. You've been fantastic, and we are with you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno Desap. We're going to Madam Kwan for 90 seconds. Please go ahead.
My question is for Mr. Syed. You mentioned that the IRCC is now asking you to fill in an additional 16 pages of forms. Is that request coming after you held your second hunger strike in Ottawa?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
All these documents, all the emails, they step in once we finish the hunger strike. But let the government know that we will not stop. That was not the first one, and that won't be the last one. If there is no response, if they will not bring our families, the soon I'm gonna organize another bigger hunger strike, and we will continue unless someone get in touch with us and find a solution for our families.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Syed, why do you think that is? Do you think it's actually a way of the government sending a displeasurable response to your hunger strike? I mean, that's weird that they're asking for additional forms to be filled after 6 months.
That's what we think when we have the Monday meetings with the IRCC, and as soon as we start talking, because we had to give them, not a warning, but we had to let them know that, okay, your offices or your officers, they're not doing their job. So that's why we are losing track of our cases, and we have decided to organize a hunger strike. As soon as we start talking about that, then the next day we got those emails. Like everyone got like 6 to 7 emails.
Thank you, Madam Kwan. It's been a minute and a half, and appreciated all the time. And on behalf of the members of the committee, even the ones that were not able to speak, Ms. Reddy, I want to thank you on behalf of the members, you and the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society for the humanitarian work that you do. And Mr. Syed and Mr. Jahid, thank you for your service to Canada, and your concerns are well heard by the members. So thank you for appearing. All the best to you. And today I'm wearing green because I'm going to an iftar party tonight, and I will still remember you and your families in the prayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for listening to us and giving us the time to present our problems here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. I'm meeting adjourned now.